Hello, beauties, and happy end of December. I hope you guys have had the most beautiful, magical Christmas, that you're excited for New Year's Eve, which is tomorrow, and the new year of 2025 right after it, which is just incredible. So I figured, why not do our final call, our Christmas call, our holiday call by the tree. I always have trees on do you guys want to see this little setup actually? So these are toilet paper snowmen done by my 6-year-old son. And then I always love to play one of these. Do you guys do this too? These background videos I find on YouTube that just have jazz and some super calming image. And I pick a different one based on the time of year that it is. They have all of them. So anyway, that's my little hack. Or even if you don't have a tree or a fireplace or whatever you may, it's available. All right, my friends, let's begin by kind of becoming grounded and centered as we always do. And then I'll keep this one brief because I know you all probably have much either celebrating or reflecting or hopefully just pondering and resting to do. These are my favorite days of the year between Christmas and New Year's. It is my favorite time of year. And not just because I'm a kind of Christmas season baby, November 30th birthday, but there's something so calming and relaxing about the days where nothing has to happen. No one's really expecting anybody to be productive. Most people are still on holiday. You get all of the out of office emails when you try to get anything done. And it's just like, well, I guess I'll just relax too then, and Christmas is over. So presents are done, the wrapping, the cooking, the decorating, the shopping, all the things are finished. And you finally have permission to just rest and enjoy it. So in that spirit, let's open with a couple deep breaths and a prayer. And then I have a lovely topic for us this evening. So if you're able to put your hands on your knees, maybe palms up, close your eyes, and let's take 3 deep breaths in and out. So breathing in and out, and breathing in and out. And one more time, deep breath in and out. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this precious time here and together and with these beautiful women, and also this sweet time of year where we finally get to feel what it feels like to rest in the presence of knowing that you're here on earth with us. Thank you so much for that. I pray that this next bit of time that we spend together here is fully in alignment with everything you want it to be, with every word you want me to say. And then we would leave here feeling even more rested, even more refreshed, even more in remembrance of the deep and unchanging and protective, providing love you have for us. In Christ's name, I pray this. Amen. I have been doing those breaths to open this call for so many years now, and it always feels so good. I mean, it's been over 5 years that I've been doing that, so it's crazy, isn't it? Every month. Anyway, all right, my loves. So I was thinking about what I wanted to chat about tonight, and I had one topic came up, but I thought it would be a better fit for January. So those of you who are looking forward to next month, and I believe I have worked out everything, so you'll be receiving emails with in advance notifications and a 1 coaching day a month, so you'll know what's up well in advance next year, which I'm very excited about. But in January, I intend to talk about boundaries while also celebrating your man. So I think it's actually going to be a lovely transition because tonight I'm going to discuss forgiveness and celebration, a little bit of forgiveness, a lot of gratitude, a lot of celebration, but it's hard to be in gratitude and celebration if you haven't stepped into forgiveness, right? And then yet it's not going to be a lay down and take it kind of message, because in January, we're going to be looking at where do boundaries fit into that, right? And when you're in a long-term relationship that you want to stay in, how do you elegantly set boundaries, and where does forgiveness fit in if you're also trying to set a boundary, and how do you balance all of that while also being grateful for the relationship that you have that you want to preserve, right? So here we are, one day before the final day of the year, and it's often, for many people, a time of reflection and of gratitude. And I love that. And no shade on that, no complaints, no, but we should, blah, blah, blah. But I do notice, I've noticed in myself for, my lifespan of relationships and in other women, that we will often celebrate and be grateful for things that are personal, right? For our individual accomplishments, goals, growth, etc. And that's good. Let me be very clear. I think that's a wonderful and important thing. But I think there's an extra course to the meal, if you will. There's something additional that's available, should we choose to allow it in, which is to not replace or overwhelm or kind of allow this to push our own awareness of our personal growth aside, because a lot of times women can do that too, right? As we become so focused on our relationships that we forget ourselves, we forget our own goals, we forget our own dreams, we forget our own growth and our own progress, and to celebrate us and to be grateful for us. But there's a special sweetness in being in celebration and gratitude around your relationship with your man. And I think, let's be honest, the timing is a little bit perfect, because a lot of times the holidays can be one of the highest stress, highest disappointment moments, right? There can be some moments of bliss where we're all sitting around the tree or, having hot chocolate at some lodge somewhere, and he's sitting there too. And we look at the children or the grandchildren or the puppies or the whatever, snow falling, and we just think, I did well. You know what I mean? I did well in choosing this manner and preserving this relationship and letting this into my life and letting myself be loved and being in this couple, etc. Right? And it's also a time of year when we can open the gift that he picked and think, is he that cheap? Or does he not know what I said I wanted? Or did he not care? Or maybe we didn't get anything from him at all? Or other forms of disappointments. Maybe, you were hosting a large group and you had requested maybe or expected his help and it didn't happen, or it didn't show up in the way that you wanted it to. And maybe you got sick or he got sick or everyone got sick, right? There's so much opportunity for beauty and pleasure, and also opportunity for pressure during the holiday season. And unfortunately, we can often take that out on those we're closest to. And if we're very disciplined to not be harsh or irritable with our children, which I think is very important, then it can be all too easy to turn it on the other adult in the household, who we may have lingering resentments toward that span the entire year, right? So it's an incredible opportunity to have a lot of resentment built up toward our man, when in fact it's supposedly, and should be in so many ways, a season of celebrating and reflecting and being grateful and in awe of everything that's accomplished and everything that didn't get done, and remarkably didn't need to get done, because here we are sitting here perfectly fine, right? So I think, and I encourage you to take the time. Of course, here we are with one day left, but I see the beginning of January as the same type of time of year, if you will, as the end of December. So to me, the year doesn't really begin until about January 10th, right? At the earliest, if necessary. It's still cuddle up and journal by the fire, watching the snow kind of time of year, or by the beach here in California. Though it is chilly here, I realize it's not chilly anywhere like the way it is in most of the rest of the country. I think chilly here is 59 degrees, so my apologies. But anyway, in a coat at the beach. So I encourage you, in whatever time comes around, for you to consciously be grateful. And I would encourage this in phases, right? So encouraging you first to do it internally. You can first of all do it for yourself. If you're not already in a practice of doing that, please pause and take gratitude and awareness and celebration for your own progress, for your own wins, for your own growth, for your own lessons, for your own survival of difficult things that may have been either foreseen or not foreseen. So definitely do that. I'm not focusing on that right now, but I do want you to know I I do that all the time. You should see. In fact, I've got my journal at my feet here. It's what I'm going to do after this. I celebrate myself like I am my own one person standing ovation audience. It is like, look at what you have accomplished, girl, get it, right? And it's usually a little more flowery in language than that, but the attitude of, wow, me, look at how far we've come. This is incredible. And even the things that I didn't get to, I still got to so many things, right? All of those kinds of things. So if you haven't already done that or fit that in, very much encourage that. But the first phase I'm actually referring to is to internally be an awareness of, celebration of, and gratitude for your relationship. Because the second phase will be me inviting you to share it with your man, right? But first, let's just take stock. And the reason I like to do that is because sometimes when we go straight to the person who we want to show gratitude toward, it's not that it can feel forced, it's that we can easily slip into the defaults of the scripts or maybe the Hallmark language. No offense, I love Hallmark. I have rewired my belief in love through Hallmark movies, but I think sometimes we understandably can just get words out that maybe we're used to, or that aren't as deep or as thoughtful or as unique or as specific as what we might have said had we reflected first, right? We just kind of go into the normal things we write on the cards that we give him, that kind of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's beautiful, but I think we could take it deeper, and just as beautiful as the opportunity to give him an awareness of gratitude that's maybe a little more specific or timely or heartfelt or haven't said this before or whatever, I think there's also a beauty to anchoring in internally just how grateful we are, you know, before we feel like it, we feel it and we share it and it kind of goes out of us very quickly, to instead take the personal private time to maybe take a walk with a hot tea mug or whatever, to sit and journal. You could write him a letter, but again, that's still, it's jumping to the expression of it to him. And I would love for you to be able to feel the freedom to be grateful for it in whatever words may come up in you that you know he won't necessarily see or won't be shared with him. Not to say that, you know, you write whatever you want to write. If you want to write, even though I can't stand this dude, you know, it's up to you. But the point is, there's an opportunity for authenticity and honesty when we're first just reflecting on our thoughts about the relationship, our gratitude for the relationship, ourselves, than when we feel like we're on show and trying to express it to that person. So however you want to go about that, through a journal, through maybe almost a love letter to yourself of gratefulness for letting yourself let this man in and keep this man in, and receive his love, however he expresses it, and learn to communicate and learn to love him and learn to let him love you and all those things. The idea is this is a closed circle, a closed loop. All of this is happening in your own heart, in your own mind, in your own awareness of how grateful you are for this relationship. If you want to rant and you want to vent and you want to give space for that first before you're able to say, okay, with that off my chest, now I can look at the beauty of this. 100% understand that. Feel free. This is all about you doing whatever you feel led to do. But the idea and intent behind it is letting ourselves really become aware of and receive and witness in front of us. I love to journal. But again, if you want to do this in your thoughts or in prayer as you're taking a walk or as you're sitting somewhere beautiful, it's just soaking in the reality and the realization of the beauty of the rapport and connection and journey and experiences and existence and how you even came to meet and came to be, all of that with this man. And ideally, your heart would, like Grinch size, right? Like would begin to be filled with just a warmth and a true gratitude. You may even find yourself in tears, and that's beautiful. Then we get to express some of that to him, whatever feels good to you in whatever form. So maybe you do then choose to write him a letter or a card or an extra little present, or to invite him on a walk with you, or for an afternoon away to a coffee shop or to a hotel lobby or whatever that may look like, to in almost a little getaway from what is all of the Christmas energy, which is also beautiful. And if you want to do this in your home and it feels like it's still a unique, set aside, kind of like a set apart, almost sacred moment where the relationship becomes the focus, even in the midst of everything. That's beautiful. You do that. But if it feels like all of the surroundings right now, say the kids and say the presents and say the bills and say, oh my gosh, the Christmas mess we now have to clean up, and oh my gosh, whatever, and you want to get away somewhere where it can be a clear focus on just the two of you and your relationship. I'm not saying you need to go have a whole weekend getaway. I'm saying like an hour, at Barnes and Noble, where you sit and have a coffee and walk through the books and then come home, but you express the fact that you're grateful for him and that it's been whatever kind of year that it's been, but that you've done it together and you've grown and you've learned and you've loved and maybe you've lost and you've fussed or you've argued, but you're here and you're grateful for him. I think, even as I say that, like, I'm sure you guys can feel just the sense of that would be, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful to honor someone who's in our lives, who's often so much part of the day-to-day operations, if you will, of running a life, that he himself, outside of being the one who helped create and now manages the children, or the one who helps bring in funds and pays the bills, or whatever his roles do or don't look like, that you're just grateful for him as a soul, as someone who you've trusted your heart to, however perfectly or not that has gone over the years, or even is going right now, that nevertheless you're very grateful for him. And imagine just the transformation in the relationship going into the next year with that kind of moment anchored in. Okay. So if it helps you to journal out before you share a moment like that with him, you could do it as a list, the list of things you could be grateful for. It could be, the fact that he likes this kind of tea, the fact that he brings you your tea, the fact that he doesn't mind that all you drink is tea. I don't know why I'm on a tea boat, but the idea is it can be silly. It can be seemingly inconsequential. It can be the kind of thing that you're not even sure why you would be grateful for that, because who cares about what kind of tea he likes, but it's just the things that bring your heart warmth or a little smile when you think of, and see how long of a list you can generate. And if that turns out to be something that you then want to hand him, what a gift, right? That would be beautiful. But it also doesn't have to be, because the intent is the transformation of your own heart to seal this beautiful year in love and gratitude toward this beautiful man. And why, one of the many reasons why that's so beautiful and important, is because acts like this release the feminine heart, right? Especially after a season that, in spite of all the pomp and circumstance and the well wishes and the platitudes we pass along to everybody and the music lyrics, etc., it can be a very high pressure, high fast tempo, high stress, and a high disappointment year, right? Like our time of year, just like I was saying at the beginning. So when women get into, and it's so ironic, right? Because the image of a woman at this time of year is maybe a pretty skirt and red lipstick and an apron on and singing in the kitchen. But the reality can often be that we get into very masculine energy during the holidays because a lot of things need to get done, right? We want to buy presents for the kids. It's going to cost a lot more money than we wanted to spend on that, but we also want it to feel magical for them. But over here, we've got this bill that needs to be paid, and it's the end of the year taxes, and whatever it may look like. A lot of times this time of year, in spite of the ideal and the images, is something that I was going to say turns women into men, but that turns us into it, that tunes us into our masculine energy. And so to intentionally, and sometimes we have to catch ourselves over and over, step out of the doer, the get it done, the checklist energy of a woman who looks like a woman but is acting like the boss, right? And again, there can be a time and a space for that, but most of us usually are either craving more femininity in our lives, or we know the superpower that it is when we choose to release it and tap into it more. And especially after a time of year where our masculinity internally can be, switched up several notches because of everything we perceive that we have to get done and the pressures that are put on us and the stress that leads to. This is a marvelous way to not only calm your nervous system down with gratitude and with feeling this warmth in your heart toward life and toward love and toward the life that you have. It's phenomenal for your health, right? It really is. It's an amazing way to wind down after a very intense, fast tempo, often time of year. But to not only be in an energetic feminine space in softness and slowerness and openness and awareness of the non-to-dos, right? A list of gratitude instead of a list of things to do. But it also, in this particular context, which is one of the reasons I love it so much, taps us into the feminine part of us that only comes out when in contrast and well, in interaction with the masculine, right? There's a femininity that women can be in when no one's around, and that's beautiful too. There's a softness, there's an openness, there's a singing, trusting, easing, flowing, and many women who try to become more feminine feel comfortable there. And that's beautiful. That's a huge, massive healed step forward. But there's a whole nother level and layer of femininity. And I was just mentioning this in an Instagram story I put up recently that I probably should turn into a post toward Valentine's Day. That it's a whole nother level when we're letting ourselves be a woman around men. And I think it's because it's often harder, right? Because how easy is it to be in ease and flow and gratitude when you're alone in a beautiful space that's organized and clean and no one's bothering you, right? But then in walks this large, BO, hairy person who didn't do what you asked him to do 15 times and is currently in the middle of doing something that you've asked him not to do, right? Whatever it is, it's a whole nother level to choose to be and stay in femininity in the presence of another human being, let alone one who is in many ways designed a little differently, right? So in being not just in a space of calm and slowness and gratitude, but specifically calm and slowness and gratitude and awareness of how much love and gratitude we have for a man takes our ability to return to and tap into and maybe even deepen more than before or more than in a while our femininity to a whole nother level. So that's one of the reasons I love this so much is it allows us to calm down after Christmas, gives us a space to reflect on our own life and on our own everything, what's going on in our soul, the things that we love. And then rather than just stopping there, which is again, very important. I'm planning to do it tomorrow and the next day. Beautiful. But it can create a little bit of a bubble where we feel like we're in our femininity, but we're still a little bit closed off and protective. Like, don't mess with my Zen, sweetie. Not right now, which we can also do with children, right? But we are sometimes, depends on the person. Some people are harsh on kids and gentler to adults. Many people are gentler to children and harsher on adults. But when we choose to do this for an imperfect adult who's sharing our life, it just takes us into the stratosphere, right? So we go from maybe being a little stressed out, a little checklisted out, a little pressured and expectations and scheduled out into calm, into peace, into reflection, into awareness, and then into sharing and opening by being not just in awareness of not just our own growth, but of this love, if this relationship that we have, but then being able to pull him into that experience. And look, he may be awkward. He may not know what to say. He might not want to go for the walk. He might not want to, that's okay. It's not about getting him, right? That would be masculine energy again. It's not about getting him to show up, to do the thing that's going to make me feel connected to him. It's about the expression of the fact that before I even called you in for this meaningful moment, I had my own meaningful moment over here, just reflecting on how much I love you and how grateful I am for you. And so I would love to participate in that with you or celebrate and anchor in and recognize and be in the moment of that with you by doing X, if you want to invite him to kind of share it with you somehow through some activity or time together, or it's just an acknowledgement. It's just the communication. It's just the sharing. And that's what's beautiful. It's truly like giving a gift, right? It truly is like giving a gift at the holidays where we're not, you better give me one back. You better give me a really nice thank you note. You better actually like this and wear it and not return it. It's freely given. There's no strings attached. There's no expectations tied to it or a sense of it needs to be a trade and therefore now you owe me. It's a gift. And so this decision to choose gratitude and awareness and celebration and love is something that we cultivate in ourselves first in part so that then we're willing to give it away and we're not in any way using it as a negotiation tool or as another expectation of like, hey, honey, now that we're both exhausted from the holidays, how about we now put pressure on ourselves to celebrate us as a couple so we both in our tired, irritated, fatigued state can go force ourselves to do something with still a little bit of resentment and bitterness, but we got to do this because this is what matters, right? It's not that energy at all, which is why I encourage you to cultivate the feeling internally first so that you can give it rather than feeling like it's now one more thing on your to-do list and there's an expectation or a potential disappointment. It is a gift from overflow, which is why we first have to make, craft, allow the overflow. Okay. Okay. The final point here is around forgiveness, because it's a little tricky to feel that feeling of gratitude towards someone if you are holding a wedge internally that you don't want to let go around something that you don't want to forgive him for, or that you're finding it difficult to forgive him for. I understand completely. And while I want to go into this more next month when we're also discussing boundaries, because I think it's easier, let's just be real, it's easier to discuss forgiveness when we know we're also going to be setting a boundary, right? Where it's like, I forgive you, and that is never going to happen again, right? And that's not the energy. I am joking, but it can feel a little easier, right? When we have a bit of a plan so that we don't have to experience this thing that has made us feel like we need to forgive him. So we'll go into that in more depth this next coming month, January. But what I want to say here tonight is, I'm sure you've heard the platitudes, and if you haven't, I'll repeat them perhaps for us next month. All of the things like, you don't forgive the other person when you forgive, or rather, you don't forgive someone for them, you forgive them for yourself. Forgiveness frees you. It doesn't mean you condone. Yes, always confuse condone and condemn, even though they mean totally different things. Doesn't mean you condone or approve of what happened just because you choose to forgive it. But I am, even in this moment, as I'm saying this, having the awareness that I think many women, and maybe men too, but I think women are designed to be more naturally protective because of our innate physical, I don't want to say lesserness, but we are simply physically weaker and we're more physically vulnerable. So I think all parts of us are more prone to having a protective barrier, both internally and externally, whether that's weight, whether that's anxiety, whether that's control, whether that's distance, whether that's unforgiveness, right? Because unforgiveness can often be very similar, just a few shades off of anger, right? And anger, while it's not a pretty word, it's not one that we like to admit to, and it has gentler synonyms or flavors like bitterness, like resentment. This sounds like a terrible recipe or something, doesn't it? It feels like a protective shield, right? And so many women will stay in anger. And let me be clear, I know for a fact that men do this too, okay? I'm not blaming our gender, but we're working only with ourselves. And so all we can change is ourselves here. So let's focus on women, acknowledging that men do the same. And maybe it's a whole nother call where we can discuss how to handle someone who is doing this if you're with him as a man. Lack of forgiveness, which is similar to anger, which can be a slow, simmering, sneaky, subtle anger, like bitterness, like resentment, like, holding a grudge, however you want to phrase this, feels very strong, right? It feels like I'm fierce. I'm going to take care of myself. I know I can't depend on you, right? So I'm just going to like buckle up, put my shield up and get done what needs to get done because fill in the blank XYZ because blah, 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 blah. I know that blah, 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 blah. Insert untrue belief here, right? Because I couldn't count on you this time, I know I can't count on you ever. Because you said this mean thing this time, I know that that means that you think, etc., and that hurts me terribly. So that's just what you believe, right? Whatever it is, it creates this protective shield, which we often do because it feels safer, right? So my point here is for this conversation, I think it deserves much more attention. Maybe if this resonates with you guys, we'll discuss it more next year, is forgiveness can feel scary. Yes, for all the reasons I listed, all the platitudes we've heard. Am I approving of the behavior? Will this then be the lack of a boundary so they'll feel like the behavior can be repeated? Am I betraying myself by allowing myself to forgive this when it really hurt me or wronged me or harmed me or whatever? Am I, being a pushover and having no self-respect and not showing self-love? All of these different misunderstandings around forgiveness. But I think that one thing that I don't think is discussed much, unless I'm missing the conversation somewhere, is that I think that particularly for women, forgiveness can feel unsafe, right? Because all of those things I just listed are perceived wrongs that we don't want to have happen again. So if we create a protective shield, maybe they won't. Now, does refusing to forgive someone prevent them from wronging us again, either in the same way or a different one? No. Doesn't accomplish anything except it creates distance in the relationship, which may actually perpetuate problems. But it can feel like I'm safe. I'm protecting myself from you because I know I can't trust you. And as long as I hold on to this resentment, this bitterness, this unforgiveness, then there will be some kind of distance where when it happens again, because it probably will, because I sure can't depend on you, I will be more distant. I will be essentially less emotionally attached to you. Therefore, I will be safer from being hurt. I can't think of any time that that logic, which I have used many times in the past, by the way, has actually worked. But I think that that's some subconscious logic that's very common, right? I'm going to stay in some degree. Maybe it's minor, but it's still there because I need some kind of backup protection in case I have to call it out and pull it out, in case he does something like that or similar again. We create a protective shield. And why do we create a protective shield? We only create a protective shield from something if we feel like we would be unsafe without it, right? If we feel like if I can just make sure that I'm less emotionally close to this man, then I won't be, not necessarily physically, that's a whole nother conversation. Let's hope that's not happening, okay? Talk to me if it is, etc. But emotionally hurt or harmed by or of repetition, sorry guys, repetition of this behavior, of repeated behavior. So I'm going to keep up this shield because it somehow makes me safer, which means I wouldn't be safe without it, which means I'm not safe, period, in open-hearted love. There's something unsafe about being open-hearted, forgiving, grace-filled. Doesn't mean without boundaries. Doesn't even mean without consequences. We're going to discuss that next month. But it does mean that it's very difficult to experience the beautiful fullness that's available to us of gratitude and love that can really bring life back into a relationship if we refuse to put the protective barrier of unforgiveness down, because we think it's going to keep us safe somehow from being hurt more. Right? We talk about that with fear. We can talk about that with judgment. We can talk about that with bitterness, with resentment. But I think unforgiveness is one more, where if we just hold a little bit of a grudge, we're safe in case he does it again. And sure enough, after all, we have to be out here on our own because we can't count on him. We can't trust him. We can't tell him things. He's not going to be there, whatever the story from the experiences is. So my encouragement to you as we get all heavy here is to recognize that forgiveness does not make you unsafe. Now, these are my beliefs. I know many, if not most of you here share them, but I do know here and there women join us where there's a little bit of a different perspective, and I completely respect that. But my beliefs, if I'm in a relationship with a man, may or may not be, I'm always in relationship with God. And if God has said it's okay and it's good and it's safe to forgive, and if I can trust him, right? So this is where we get into the unconscious theology of, do I believe that I can trust what God tells me is safe and is good and is right to do? Do I believe that? Or am I kind of like Eve style? Like, I don't know that that's what he really said. I don't know that's what he really means. I don't know that I can really trust it, right? Very similar to what we do with men. Oh man, that's a whole other conversation. But anyway, if God has said that it's safe because it's right, he wouldn't tell me to do something that he knows is very much intentionally going to lead directly and only to my harm, right? So if he says to forgive, I might not be able to trust the man's behavior at all, right? So it might feel unsafe. His behavior may or may not change and make it worse. I have no control over it, but I know that I know my Father. And if he says it's safe for me to forgive, then it is safe for me to forgive. Doesn't mean I won't be hurt again. But being in unforgiveness doesn't mean I won't be hurt again either. So there's something better about being in forgiveness. And I don't know if it's whether because it allows a deeper level of the flood of gratitude and love, not so that we can give it to this person who we may at moments think doesn't deserve it, but so that our heart, our physical body, the hormone shifts, all of the things, the immunity can be healed and benefit from being in a much better physical and emotional, internal nervous system, everything state. And maybe because it could also have the potential to heal relationships and take them to a deeper level. But for whatever reason, God said it's good. And therefore, at least by my understanding, it's safe. So my encouragement to you is not to look for and consider where you may hold a little bit of unforgiveness tucked away somewhere, or maybe very much front and center, in reserve perhaps, or right here, ready to go, to keep yourself safe from additional disappointment, hurt, from letting yourself love and be loved fully and being crushed again when a fallible human being doesn't do it as well as God. But instead to not base whether or not it's safe to lay down the shield of unforgiveness on another person's behavior, whether they deserve it or whether they're safe, they'll do it again, but on the idea that a perfect God has said, it's okay for you to do this. In fact, it's good for you to do this. It's good for you to do this, and you can trust him. And if you can feel the state and the place of power that comes into you with that awareness, then when you're stepping into the love and the gratitude, you can feel that you're not doing it from a surrendered, almost like a sappy melting into the floor. Now I'm a walk mat that people can walk all over kind of thing. No, the feminine gift of love and gratitude comes from a very powerful place, because it's not an exchange. It's not a trade. It's not a now you owe me, now I expect this, or now I hope you give it back to me. It's a my flood of safety and well-being and awareness of all that I have to be grateful for comes from something so much higher. And so I'm in this very grounded, centered space as I experience love and gratitude. And that's why I have it on overflow for you. It's not, well, you hand me your cup and I'll hand you my cup, and we're going to do it at the same time. We're going to make sure they're both equally full. It's this divine, feminine, grounded, I almost feel like, both feet on the ground. It's a source that's coming from above. And that's why we first spend time going internal to make sure we've received that, and we don't feel the weak or wishy-washy or kind of social pressure expectations of the trade that often comes in sharing warm wishes and good feelings, but we source it internally first. We feel it, we're honest with it, we receive it, we deal with any unforgiveness, and then when we give it, it's overflow. And it's truly a gift, and we do it from a grounded place, not I hope this means you'll be nicer next year, or I hope this means that, the fight can end. There's no weak, whimpering, hopeful, fingers crossed energy in coming forward to him to express your gratitude and love. It's almost like I've already handled this. I've already done this. Which is also not a cold exclusion energy of like, I don't want to share it with you. I'm just letting you know I'm grateful for you. Stay over there, right? I have received this myself, the gratitude and the love that I have for you, and how aware I am of this relationship and how much it means to me. And even though it hasn't been perfect here and there, and maybe you're here, right now, I just want you to know that I am very clear and I feel it deeply, the love that I have for you, the gratitude that I have for you, and the willingness and the gladness, the happiness, the delight, and the continued desire to be in this relationship with you. And it's an open-hearted gift from overflow, from a place of power, from a woman who's protected by her father in everything that she does. So she doesn't have to have shields up, because he's her shield and will be in every situation when she's in alignment with him. I love saying things like that. I love saying words like that out of my mouth. I don't know if it blesses me, but I encourage you, if you want to like play that back and repeat it and say it, but some phrases just feel like you are speaking the actual design of how it should have been and should still be and will be again someday into the world. And our words have so much power. So when I feel it come out of my body, it brings me so much joy. So, ladies, that is my little Christmas message to you. I hope you have had a beautiful holiday already, and I hope this allows you to take the awareness of everything in your life that's beautiful, that God has gifted and that God has coming to a deeper level. And believe me, we'll chat about boundaries and all of the things. So this is not laying down hopes and dreams. It's simply laying down shields and weapons so that we can let in love at this beautiful, soft, sacred, it's almost a magical feeling time of year. Okay? So much love to you guys. Happy New Year. I'm getting my nails done tomorrow, so only 2 left to fall off. I hope you have a beautiful celebration, however and whatever and with whomever that looks like. And I hope that these thoughts and this exercise that I offer to you, not as a challenge, but it's an invitation to step into at this time of year, is yet another gift to you. I love you guys so much. You are such a gift to me, and I will see you in 2025. Bye, ladies.